Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Perpetual here. If you're new, a very warm welcome to you and thank you all so much for joining me today as I make palm nut soup. Yebeye Abenkwan papabi. Come along and let's get started. The Aiden fruit or Prekese is definitely optional. I actually don't like it, so I will not be using any in the soup today. When I'm going to be using cow foot for Abenkwan, I usually cook it the day before with a bit of onion, salt, and water. To get this pulp, you cook your palm nut with water 1-to-1 ratio. And in my case, I added a handful of turkey berries. After it cooks for about an hour or two, depending on the quantity that you're using, you're going to drain the water and you're going to pound the palm nut with the turkey berries until you get this pulp. Reserve about half of the papushito or the petite bell peppers to use in the end for garnish. I usually cook my cow foot the night before and keep it in the fridge because it takes a really long time to cook. You'll be cooking it for about an hour to 2 hours before it gets soft enough for you to be able to use it in your soup. The flavor is definitely worth the work though. So what I do is just before I use it again, I pop it back on the stove for a few minutes, stir it, warm it up, and then go ahead and use it for the soup. I use about 2 large onions diced. You can leave about half of it to use in the end when you're blending the tomatoes. And I'm now transferring my cow foot with the stock into a bigger pot where I'm going to make the soup itself. Since the cow foot is already cooked, after I add the onions, I just need to let it simmer on low heat for about 5 minutes and I can keep going with the soup. And depending on the amount of salt that you put in the cow foot when you were cooking it initially, you may or may not need to put in additional salt, so just check the salt and adjust accordingly. The smoked fish that I had was quite big, so I ended up using only about half of it. And for the dried herrings, you want to remove the skin from it before you use it. A lot of times you can buy them from the market already removed. I usually freeze my palm pulp in portions so that when I'm ready to use it, I just take a portion and pour some hot water over it. I'm just transferring the palm nut into a bigger pot so that I can mix it easier in there. This palm pulp is now available for sale commercially, but if you don't find it, there are canned versions as well that you can use in a cream form and you follow a very similar process. For soup that will serve 4 to 5 people like what I'm making today, you're going to need 1 can of the cream, or if you're using the pulp like I am, you're going to need anywhere from about 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds of the pulp. You're using the can. For every 1 can that you use, please use 2 cans of water to mix your cream. I'm using a spoon to stir it now because it is extremely hot, and as I stir it, since the mixture is frozen, the temperature will go down a bit so that I can handle it with my bare hands. I honestly think that Abenkwan is on the list of top 5 foods that every Ghanaian girl is forced to learn how to make. I'm adding about 2 cups more of tap water because the mixture was still hot for me to handle in my bare hands. I'm removing all the excess pulp and kernels from my mixture so that I can strain it. So guys, when I met my father-in-law for the first time, one of his first questions was, "Unim Abenkwan ye?" Meaning, do you know how to make Abenkwan? I don't think he believed me when I said yes. So I started telling him the process involved in it. I think that's what convinced him. So yes, you definitely want to learn how to make it because you never know when you'll be in my kind of situation. Alright guys, so we're gonna sieve our liquid about 3 times minimum. We want to make sure it's as smooth as possible and get rid of any of the seeds from the turkey berries. Anything that we don't want in our soup, we're gonna get rid of by sieving it so many times. And yes, Abenkwan requires a lot of patience and you're gonna do a lot of dishes at the end, but it is so worth it. And my daughter Nanekia definitely gets excited when she sees me making Abenkwan, especially when she knows that it's gonna be with fufu like today. After sieving it 3 times, in my case, there was barely any pulp left in the sieve, so I went ahead with the soup. So at this point, the base of our soup has been cooking for about a good 15 minutes and it is ready for us to pour the palm mix into it. For palm nut soup, you're not limited to the kind of meat that I'm using. You can use goat meat, beef, anything that you'd like really, but a good combination of different types of meat and dried fish definitely adds a lot of flavor to it. And when I pour the palm mix in, I always leave the last little bit at the bottom because it usually still has a little bit of the pulp or seeds that you don't want in the soup. Give it a quick stir and add your tomatoes into it now. When you're making palm nut soup, you don't want to use a lot of tomatoes because the more tomatoes you use, the less palm oil you're going to get at the end. While the soup cooks, I'm going to prepare and clean my crab. Guys, I don't know the anatomy of a crab, so I don't know which parts I'm taking off, but I know that you take off the ends. And the middle part has a little flap that you want to get rid of as well because usually there's a lot of sand settling there. So once you're done taking it off, you also want to give it a good rinse to make sure that if there's any sand that you got rid of it. When your soup comes to a boil, which would be after about 10 to 15 minutes, you can go ahead and add your cleaned crab and your smoked mackerel or salmon as we call it in Ghana. And our soup is looking good and smelling divine. If you were using Prekese or Aiden fruit in your soup, this would be the perfect time to add it. All you do is take the back of your knife and tap the Aiden fruit, and this releases additional flavor and the aroma of it. And at this point, you cover your soup halfway and let it cook for about an additional 10 minutes. At this point, you're going to remove your tomatoes from your soup and place it into your blender. and you're going to add your peppers, ginger, and garlic. Now you can leave a bit of the petit bell chilies or the papushito for later for garnish. We're going to scoop out all the excess palm oil that has settled on top of the soup. If you have excess of this, you can store it and use it in any of your stews or soup that require palm oil. But for today, we're going to use most of it to fry our pepper mix for our soup. So after you pour your pepper mix into the palm oil, give it a quick stir and cook it on low heat for about 10 minutes to really concentrate the flavor. When the palm oil settles on top of your sauce, you know that it is ready to be poured into your soup. This step of frying the pepper and tomato mix is so important because it is so aromatic and it concentrates the flavors. It smells amazing, guys. Try this. Trust me, you're gonna come back and tell me how amazing it is. If you're not a big fan of very thick palm nut soup, at this point you can add about a cup or two of water to thin it out a bit while it continues cooking. After adding your pepper mix, just give it a gentle stir and garnish with your petit bell chilies or your papushito. After adding your peppers, cook it on low heat for about another 5 minutes and your soup will be good to go. Alright my loves, our Abenkwan is ready to be served. Today we're having it with fufu, but it is perfect with banku, omotuo, plain rice, gari, yam. The possibilities are just endless. If you enjoyed this recipe, please give me a thumbs up. Let me know in the comment section when you try it out. And of course, please send me pictures on Instagram as well. I will see you again very soon. And thank you all so much for coming along with me on this delicious journey.